Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got a game changer for small businesses when it comes to your health plans. And let's face it, we all want to be healthy. So let's learn all about StretchDollar's mission on this episode. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. All right, Business Bros, here we go again. In the world of startups, few are as dedicated to empowering small businesses as our next guest is. He's a co-founder of StretchDollar. He's a visionary who believes that every small business deserves the great health benefits without the big business price tags. So from his early days at Gusto to his innovative strides at Decent, he's been a relentless advocate for affordable healthcare. So join us today as we share his journey and how he's transforming the healthcare landscape. Let's welcome to the show, Mr. Marshall Darr. All right, Marshall, let's do this thing, man. Welcome aboard.
Awesome, man. I love it. That was an incredible intro. I've never been welcomed so lovingly.
Well, dude, you're doing things to make sure people are healthy out there when it's super expensive, and we just got to give you the courtesy of giving you your fire intro too, dude. Let's jump into this thing, man. I kind of said it in the intro, but if you can make it as simple as possible, what do you do, man? What is it you are bringing to the table today?
Yeah, man. StretchDollar is a free platform that lets small businesses offer pre-tax funding that their employees can use to pay for health insurance policies they ultimately own. So think of it like instead of spending 100 hours setting up a small group plan, it's really as simple as being like, hey, everybody gets $300 a month if you sign up through StretchDollar, and we handle the rest for you.
That makes it so much easier because I know on the healthcare side, it can get so confusing on the multiple types of plans, how many actual employees you have to have versus, ownership, all kinds of different stuff that gets really confusing, which is one of the reasons why people just don't go out and get it done, especially small business owners. Walk me through your origin story. How'd you decide to get started with StretchDollar, and what triggered you to go on this particular venture?
Yeah, I kind of got my start in the space about 10 years ago at a company called Gusto. It's a small business payroll benefits platform. Has about 300,000 companies on it right now, but when I joined, it was around 2,000. So I was their first email marketer, but classic startup story. I got there and there was nothing to trigger emails off of. So wound up building up a lot of the tech stack and ultimately working on the team that rolled out the health benefit program there. These were specifically looking to try and figure out how to help companies with fewer than 10 employees get set up with health insurance plans. And frankly, there weren't a lot of options then. There are even fewer now. I went from StretchDollar to a company called Decent, where we were trying to build an end-to-end health insurance company from scratch. And that was hard to do. So I was there for about 5 years and they laid off some of the team. I decided to take them and launch into StretchDollar, which is really based around the idea that, like, if you have fewer than 20 employees, it's really hard to set up a group plan. We were actually our first clients on StretchDollar, and I had an employee in California who really wanted Kaiser. I live in Philadelphia. Kaiser doesn't exist out here. And so we really didn't have any option to make sure that everybody could get the kind of health insurance they want, and more importantly, the kind of health insurance they're actually going to use. And we ultimately built it. So the whole idea is like, let's keep it simple. Let's get you out of this, and let's let your people pick what they want to use.
There are a ton of different brokers out there that you can go to when it comes to health insurance. I mean, PNC and life and health, they're all a little bit different, right? So you got to make sure that your agent is licensed in the right stuff first and foremost. But there are other agents that can help with getting your business the health insurance coverage that they need. But there's a reason why people come to StretchDollar. What is that? Why do you feel that companies come to you versus the competition?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've built our own platform. All of this doesn't really exist anywhere else. We kind of kicked it off from scratch about a year ago. And in such, it takes about 10 minutes to get set up with the policy. You can do it right now. If you start now, by the time the podcast is over, you're going to be done with your health insurance, which is kind of a unique thing in this space.
That's quick. I mean, insurance coverages kind of traditionally have taken a while for you to be able to get coverage. There's a lot of different things that you need to know of. There's pre-existing conditions. There's also, especially when you're going into groups, there's that open enrollment period. How are you able to do it without going through some of those hoops?
Yeah, it's a good question. And frankly, you weren't really able to before 2020. The IRS changed some legislation to enable pre-tax contribution from employers to employee-approved medical expenses. We took that legislation, made it as simple as possible to focus on how can we help you help your people cover their premiums, and then we created a free-to-use financing tool to enable you to do it. And so with StretchDollar, you're not picking a health insurance plan. You're really only picking how much you can comfortably contribute to your employees' coverage. We then work with your employees to pick the plan that works best for them. So an example, I was working with this company out of Florida. They're a shower door installer. They had a Blue Cross Blue Shield group policy, but one of their employees was a type 1 diabetic. She was paying $1,300 a week out of pocket for her insulin, and they had a group plan. We took her insulin coverage, looked through the formularies that we could match it to on the individual market, and found a plan where it cost her $30.
That is a huge difference. I mean, I got family members that are diabetic. For the medications, they could be very outrageous, and to be able to drop it down to like that $30 a week compared to that $1,300 a week, I mean, that's a big difference in somebody's life. From a business owner standpoint, how does it differentiate from normal premiums? I mean, obviously there's a deductibility that we're talking about here. But when it comes to premiums, if an employer went and got a group plan by themselves versus kind of subsidizing what they're going to be able to contribute to this plan, how does it affect the business owner overall? Like when they're looking at these comparable plans?
Yeah, it's a good question. In most major metros, the business owner and the employees are actually going to save, moving to the individual market versus the fully insured small group. There are some markets where honestly it's touch and go. New York, very expensive. But in our south here in Philly, our plans are about a third as expensive. So when in doubt, I do recommend you look. We have a way to quote out your contributions in real time at StretchDollar.com. So you can see basically what the local average is that people are giving their employees. And then if you want to bump it up a bit, we can help you do that. If you want to take it down, we can do that too. But there's no minimum contribution and no minimum participation. The goal of this was to create that sort of like entry point to offering group benefits that a lot of small businesses get stuck on. Like before StretchDollar, your options were really to do nothing at all for health benefits or go all the way to this fully insured group plan that might cost you $1,000 per employee per month. And even then, your employees might not like it because they all have to switch their network to be on the same thing. Ultimately, we wanted to create an easier way for businesses to get involved, help their people out, and hopefully save some time and money in the process.
Now you mentioned, and this is still the case for the most part anyways, but you mentioned crossing state lines. Certain states offer certain things versus other states. And we live in an era, especially right now, where I could have my business here in California, but have employees that are in New York, for example, and those are going to be completely different policies. Just for clarification's sake, you're helping the individual. So it doesn't matter where they're domiciled. You're going to look for plans in that state that fit the needs for that particular employee, regardless of where the business is located.
Yeah.
Correct?
We treat each employee like their own special person they are. We obviously start with the amount they're being offered from their employers. And honestly, in certain situations, it might make sense for them to waive that entirely and accept government subsidized health plans instead. We help them wade through all of that. We highlight plans that we like if they don't have a strong preference, because some people don't. Some people, don't see the doctor that often and are just looking to have kind of like their backs covered. And if that's you, we have a situation for you. If you have a more particular medical situation with some prescriptions or some doctors that you really want to keep in network, we can help you do that too. So we take each individual and match them to their best outcome.
And for the business, it sounds to me like it's a huge benefit. I don't have to have a whole HR department to come in to manage the policy. I don't have to worry about learning that aspect of it because you guys are handling it. I'm just paying what I would normally already want to contribute to my employees. So is this operated like an HSA, like a health savings account, or is this structured a little bit differently from like the business perspective?
Sort of similar. So it's a new type of HRA called an ICHRA that just became legal back in 2020. So far, we've seen mainly adoption with very large, kind of more blue collar companies, but we're hoping to bring some of those advantages that they've found down to smaller businesses by really like simplifying the setup in month-to-month administration.
Now, you came from a couple different organizations, Gusto and Decent. You got the opportunity to kind of see how things operate, meet the right people, and you talked a little bit how you built your own team. What were some of the challenges you faced transitioning from having a specific role to going off and doing this thing on your own and kind of having to fill in all those gaps?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like whenever you start a company, you're obviously very passionate about the idea of it. But you don't get to work on that very much day to day because there's other things that pull you out of that. You're setting up your payroll, you're doing an employee handbook, you're finding funding, you're really like just running around making sure your baby can live. And then the baby runs off and plays. and
Yeah.
so I feel like I probably sound like a lot of founders where I was just shocked at how much work goes into just making the business exist. Things like figuring out where to incorporate, what business type. It's like an endless list of things you sort of have to figure out to exist at all.
And you sort of mentioned at the beginning, but I kind of want to clarify. Do I have to have a certain number of employees? Like what's the minimum requirement for a business to come into your organization and take advantage of this opportunity for their clientele? Like what's the minimum contribution amount, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, just one employee. We actually have a cigar shop out of Chicago that doesn't have any employees yet, but they wanted to be ready for when they opened. So they put a policy together, and now they can recruit off of the fact that when you join, you get access to this $250, $300 a month, whatever they want to put in. And they've been very excited about recruiting off of that. But there's no minimum contribution necessary. We have people that go as high as 1,000, some like new startups coming out here. And then we have a horse farm out of Dallas that's offering 150. And so there's a wide range. And honestly, like if you're concerned about like, is my offer going to be enough to help my people? That's what our job's for. And
Yeah.
we can meet with you and help you figure that out.
And I think it's one of the better recruitment tactics to be able to offer some of these benefits to your employees. And oftentimes with almost any business, we want to be able to offer things, but then when we grow and we scale, it might not be as easy to transition. I think you guys have made it pretty easy to bring somebody on board pretty quickly for the business owner. But what about on your side? How have you done with operating at scale as you grow and grow your own organization at StretchDollar?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we struggled a bit with it because it's funny. There's never a right time to build for scale. I feel like you're either too early and you should be doing other stuff, or you're too late and everything's on fire. I got really lucky with my co-founder. She's just a brilliant operational minded person and has helped keep us on track. And then we had the benefit of a lot of industry experience to help us, make sure we took really good care of those early customers when frankly, not a lot was built. We incorporated this company at all about a year ago. So it was in April of last year. did our pre-seed funding round over the summer, and then actually joined as our own first clients in October. So we moved very fast. We're up to, about 70 companies on the platform currently, and more coming. So a lot of big movement, and it's funny. It's seasonal business as well. So like even now, it's like we're doing a lot of good work, getting people on, getting people placed, but we got to be ready to really accelerate and make our things available to more and more people.
Yeah, and it's all a matter about getting that word out, because I think once
Mhm.
small businesses kind of understand how easy it is to get started, it'll make it much easier to sell that opportunity. What is your vision of the future? So you guys just launched. You're bringing in clientele. Obviously, they're seeing the benefits, and they're getting things going. Um, are you seeing any trends in the future of health benefits or in the future of healthcare that might affect the way your business is going to grow in the next couple of years here?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've seen some pretty somewhat troubling indications in the group space. You have some major carriers actually exiting. So Humana is functionally pulled out of all their employer group plans to focus on Medicare. If that sort of trend keeps happening, there's going to be fewer and fewer options for small businesses, and it's going to keep getting more expensive. On the flip side, we see that the ACA and the individual market has actually gotten a lot stronger over the past handful of years. And granted, I'll be the first to say that when the exchange first launched, Obamacare, if that's how you're familiar with it, it was a mess. It was very expensive. It was very hard to get set up on. But it's been about a decade, and they've really done some good work to improve the plans available and improve the prices for people. So there's a handful of people who, frankly, didn't believe us at first when we quoted them out, but we showed them, and they can take some really good care of their people in a way that they weren't expecting.
Yeah, it's been a weird run for insurance companies. I know in the P&C market, there's a lot of carriers that are backing out of certain states. I'm in California, and there's a lot of auto companies that are hurting. I just saw State Farm release something that they had huge losses in their P&C department over this last quarter, and they're just straight leaving. I'm listening to you over here talk about health carriers kind of moving in that same direction. They're all moving towards Medicare, mainly because we have an aging population.
Mhm.
But we do have that younger population that's still working class. There's more people, I think, moving into being self-employed, even if it's just a side hustle, because things are getting so expensive right now. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs who want to tackle large, complex issues like healthcare, but don't know where to start?
Yeah, it's a good question. And frankly, it's one I was wrestling with myself because I knew I always wanted to build something to help people, specifically small business owners who I've worked with for so long. But to get rolling is very complicated. That's why you have to break it down. You have to break it down to like the first solvable problem. And the first thing we felt we had to solve was we had this idea. We had to figure out if anybody wanted it. So I I paid out of pocket to make a tablecloth, and I rented a booth out of pocket at a local like conference show. And me and one of my early employees just sat at the booth and pitched people all day long to see if what we were trying to put together was going to resonate. And we had a line waiting for us, and so it was a really good um, early indicator that what we were on to was something people were actually going to want. And I feel like that's one of the first things you got to figure out is like, what's the cheapest, easiest way to test what you want to build before you invest all the way into creating it? Because, we all fall in love with our own ideas. They're our own little babies, but like at the same time, you need to make sure that other people are going to love them too before you take out that second mortgage to try and build it up.
Oh, dude. I mean, if you don't have customers, you're not going to have a business, period. So,
Mm,
asking that clientele if they're interested, and the fact that you have a line means
mm.
you were doing something right. Now, can you go ahead and solve the problem that everybody wants solved? That's really the
Yeah.
question. And as you become more efficient, that's kind of the best part. So, If people want to go to StretchDollar, they want to find out more about this opportunity that you're saying is possible for small business owners with as small as an employee of one, what can they do and what can they expect when they head over to StretchDollar?
Yeah, you head to StretchDollar.com. You can go ahead and quote yourself out policy. You can request to talk to our sales team, or just dive right in and begin putting together things yourself. Typically, it takes us about a month to get everybody onto the platform. So if you're sitting here and thinking like, man, like by June, I want to have an offering out there, now's a pretty good time to think about it. To those that don't know, we're recording this in late April.
Yes.
Who knows when you're listening? But honestly, very simple, very fast to get rolling. And, there's no commitment. It's a free platform. So feel free to poke around and hopefully we can help you help your people.
That makes it super easy. I'm going to go on. I'm going to fill in some information. Your team's going to get back to me. It takes about a month to get situated. Now, let me ask you, when my employees want to find out about stuff, the month to get situated, I'm assuming it's because you set up a portal or a profile for the business owner, and then this is where their employees kind of go in and figure out what it is that they need individually?
Yeah. So vast majority of that month is actually us working with your employees to match them to policies. You as a business owner, all you really have to do is specify the amount you'd like us to make available, sign a plan document, integrate your bank account, and invite your people. We move the funds directly each month for every live policy that your employees opt to get. So it's really a set it and forget it. You don't even have to log this through payroll.
What's been your biggest objection? Like, what's the pushback that you get most often? And how are you overcoming that?
Honestly, it's apathy is too harsh of a word, but like this is something that's pretty easy to procrastinate on, which I get. It's a big expense, and like forever people have been annoyed about engaging in any sort of health insurance conversation. Like I am very aware that everybody starts at like a baseline level of pretty highly annoyed when they come to talk to us,
Fair.
but we tend to be able to walk it back pretty quickly. So honestly, I think it's just getting people who've always wanted to do this, who have had it like deep on their to-do list, to just take 15 minutes and cross it out with us. That's been the tough part, is like, let's just take care of this now, sort of thing.
I feel like every business venture has its hurdles, right? It's lessons, it's scars that you kind of wear, that you take on with you. What would you say is like the biggest lesson you've learned going into StretchDollar, leaving one of the, either Gusto or Decent, right? Leaving one of those companies where you learn so much. Where do you feel you've learned the biggest lesson, or made or have earned the biggest scar?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's very hard for me to be patient, and I think it's gotten harder since we've launched this. But like, you got to give your people the time they need to do the work they need to. We went into end of year and overspent on our ad budget, and frankly, our product wasn't really ready. Everything was still going to Accountly to book meetings with me, and that's not a very scalable way to build out a business. So I was sitting on 60 to 80 Zoom calls a week, and I frankly wasn't doing my best job as a sales rep. We were burning money on the leads, and we were a month or two away from a platform that would let people sign themselves up. And I was just convinced we needed to move right then. Should have waited. But patience is hard when you're a founder,
Yeah. You want to make it happen today rather than tomorrow. I totally get that. Do you guys have like a commission or a referral program where you can kind of use other businesses to network and attract more clients?
Yeah, we do. So if you refer a business, we give you $25 per employee signing up, and them $25 per employee signing up. And they don't even have to get all the way to onboard and onto the platform for us to unlock that funding for you. So it's really something we give you if they take a good, serious look at the platform. We're currently working out our best way to work with health insurance brokers. Transparently, we monetize off of being the broker on the policy. So we'll match people to the right policies, and then we get commission from the health insurance company. It's illegal to charge differently whether or not a broker's involved. So your employees won't notice that. You won't pay anything out of pocket. We get to keep the lights on. But sometimes that makes it tricky working with third-party brokers. And so we're still figuring that aspect of the business out.
Yep, there's always little pieces here and there, man. There's always little pieces for sure. All right, before we head out, any final words about your journey, about StretchDollar, or to business owners out there who are interested?
I mean, we would love the opportunity to make this a little bit simpler for you. But I would also like to give a little shout out to the Business Bros. Very well researched podcast. Incredible opening. I've had a great time. Really appreciate it. And I'll be subscribing and listening going forward.
Boom. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Marshall. Ladies and gentlemen, look, healthcare, it is a necessity, especially if you have little ones, or at any given time, anything can happen. And we're like one medical expense away from bankruptcy for most people because it's just super expensive. So might as well get that coverage that you need. And yeah, you can go to an insurance broker, but oftentimes if you're a small business owner, taking care of your people is something you got to do, and it could be expensive, but StretchDollar is finding a way to help you do that. So make sure you guys go to StretchDollar.com. Check out what they have to offer. You never know. You could be the hero your employees were definitely looking for. Marshall, thank you very much for taking the time. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get